Hello and welcome to The Sharpening. I am your host, Josh Peck. Tonight we have a very special guest for you. We have somebody who has had the honor of marrying me. We have my wife, Christina Peck. Christina, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Doing great. I'm glad we were able to get you on the show. We've been talking some time about having you on and kind of introducing you to the community of listeners and readers that we have out there. And I'm glad that we're able to do that, especially with a show like this, because as I know, but many out there might not, this is a topic that you've had some personal experience with, which we'll be getting into later on in the show.
Yes, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, so for those of you who have not met my wife yet, again, her name is Christina. She's the one that kind of works behind the scenes with just the kids and me, and but really she's also the other half of Mini Study Ministry. She's the one that really does just basically what I don't do. We Mini Study Ministry is really just the two of us right now, so we're kind of doing everything, and she picks up where I leave off, and I pick up where she leaves off, so it works out great. So it's a pleasure to finally be able to have Christina on, and a pleasure for me to introduce her to the listeners out there and the people who have been following me online. She's helped in editing some books and kind of looking over things, making sure what I have makes sense. I've probably read more to her from my books than anything else, so that's kind of nice to have. So that, and then just being a mom and working, for those of you who are familiar with me, I'm disabled, so Christina's the one that actually goes out and works while I sit at home and collect government paychecks, basically. But so she's the one out there doing that, of which I could not be more appreciative of. So that's basically who we have tonight. And the show topic for tonight is the alien deception. It's a topic that we've kind of touched on here and there throughout the course of the show, but we haven't actually done a full show on it yet, and I'm glad that we're able to now. And as I said before, I'm glad that we're able to do this with Christina, because she's had some firsthand experience with these things, and we'll actually be getting into that later on in the show, because she's graciously been willing to share her encounters with us, which is great. But before we get into all that, Christina, for those of you who don't know you or haven't met you, would you be able to give us a rundown of your testimony, like how you came to know Jesus and how that led to where you are today?
Of course. Well, I grew up in a very Christian home, non-denominational. I have attended several kinds of churches in the past. I grew up first off going to public schools, and then in second grade was pulled out of public schools to go attend Genesee Christian, which is a private school in Flint, Michigan. And and we grew up attending Mount Zion, which was a non-denominational, kind of on the charismatic side. And never questioned there ever being a God or anything like that, so I grew up knowing. I would have to say probably around 6 years of age, it really became real to me, knowing that there was a God, and that's when I kind of started. And took Understanding God courses at Mount Zion, which is in Clarkston, Michigan, and was baptized at 14 into the church. And from then on, just grew more spiritually, and am continuing to grow spiritually, and it's a wonderful journey. And there have been many instances in my life where God has made himself known to me. One especially that's important. When I was 14, I was in a car accident. I was hit by a drunk driver, uh, and I was with a few friends of mine. It was 3 days after Christmas. Went over to her house. We shared. We did a gift exchange and went shopping with our Christmas money. And then she was on her way to my house. Her sister's boyfriend was driving, and we were hit head-on and broadsided by two vehicles. We were in a little Neon. They were in a Dodge Durango and a Mazda truck, both quite a bit bigger than the Neon. I don't remember much. After the impact, I remember hitting the cars, and my head had gone through the passenger side window. And I remember waking up to the paramedics. It must have been about an hour later. They were really surprised to see me come to because I was pronounced dead on scene. And once getting to the hospital, they said that I'd probably never walk again, never talk again, never have children. All of that was not an option anymore. And my vertebrae was severed between the third and the fourth, so I should have been a paraplegic. But miracles happen. I'm walking, I'm talking. I've had 2 children, and so God is good, and that's a good testimony. So He's
Wow.
very faithful.
Amen. That's amazing. Yeah, I never tire of hearing your testimony, especially with the car crash, because you're walking proof, literally, that miracles do happen, and that's amazing. I remember when we first got married, that was something that you were afraid of, that you didn't know for sure if you were going to have kids, and I remember what we talked about, and I said, well, if you can't, we'll just adopt. We'll do that. That's fine. But it turned out you were able to, and there's clearly no problems there. So praise God for that. um, as kind of a side note to those who are watching the video interview, I will say we don't have the best quality because we have two laptops running on one internet connection, and where we live, they can only give us the basic internet connection. So we kind of debated if we should do the show or not because the quality is kind of rough. But we decided to just go for it anyway because, worst case scenario, if there's something that you can't hear, or if there's something that you can't see, or something you have questions about, you can always email me or get a hold of me on Facebook. And same with Christina. I'm sure she'll give her email address and stuff too at the end of the show when we get to that point. So apologies for all of the video and audio quality problems, but we decided to just do the show anyway. Worst case scenario, maybe you'll be able to get some out of it. But we just figured the content of the episode was important enough to at least give it a shot. So that's what we're doing. Now this is actually a topic that Christina and I discovered together a year or two ago. God kind of opened us both up to this, because something that we've often asked ourselves and others is, where do aliens fit into the Bible? And that's something that was a big deal for us. Personally, as far as I know, I've never had any personal encounters. I've never seen a UFO or anything like that. I've seen some strange things, but that isn't in the list. But it's something that I still questioned a lot. And but Christina has seen stuff like that, and actually pretty extensive. So that's something that she's seen a lot too. So we decided to we really wanted to know how that was going to fit into the Bible. And God was gracious enough to show us once we started asking Him instead of trying to find the answers for ourselves. So that kind of led us to discovering the content that we're going to be sharing in this show. Usually when I have a guest on, I'll interview the guest about their book or about a video they have or something like that. But today it's a little bit different. This is going to be more of a family discussion, I guess. you're gonna kind of get both of the Pecks. Christina and I are both going to be talking about this topic and discussing it and our ideas about it and stuff. So you all out there will be able to listen to that. And now this is something that I've wrote about before in a couple different books, probably most notably in Disclosure, which as another kind of tangent, I'll say that with Disclosure, I am working on an updated and extended version of that, so hopefully that will be out soon. But anyway, in Disclosure, I did deal with this idea of aliens in the Bible. Are they in the Bible, and what are they? And I've come to the conclusion in my study with Christina, and both of us studying together, that this is actually part of a much bigger biblical phenomenon. It's part of a great deception, and I'm sure many out there listening or viewing this show are probably familiar with that term, the coming great deception, or strong delusion, as the Bible calls it. Now, being that our enemy is subtle and he's good at lying, I think it's important that we be educated as much as possible so we're not deceived. We have to be able to guard against that, and one of Satan's biggest tricks is using our own pride against us to convince us that we're too smart to fall for his tricks. Now, I fell in that line of thinking years ago when I got into New Age theology, and one of the things that brought me into New Age was this question of aliens in the Bible and how they fit. And the church that I was raised in wasn't providing an answer, so instead of asking God like I should have, I just decided to go it alone, and it brought me to New Age, and that it was very deceptive. So the Bible tells us that Christians are going to fall away from their faith and the church, that we're not too smart to fall for Satan's tricks. So it's important for us to have humility so we can learn, so we can thoroughly research this coming great deception and learn what we can about it. So in this episode, we're going to look at some future possibilities concerning the coming great deception. But of course, before we can speculate on the future, we got to define what exactly we're looking for. So Christina, I believe that you have a Bible verse and probably have some things that you would like to add, so I will hand it over to you.
Okay. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3 reads, Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come as a falling away first, that man of sin be revealed as the son of perdition. Now the word falling away used in the Greek, word for that is apostasia, meaning defection from the truth. And that is where we get it in English, apostate. Apostasy, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I know those Greek words can trip you up. They do to me too. And I'll say to listeners and viewers out there, we are not at all Greek scholars. We don't know how to really pronounce any of these words. We basically use a concordance, and we have a couple of close friends that actually do know Greek and Hebrew, so we consult them. A couple of colleagues of mine, so that's been a huge help. So we're gonna be getting into some Greek words and things throughout this episode, but don't take us as the final authority on that, because we're certainly not, and most likely we're pronouncing them wrong. Our information pretty much comes from things like the Strong's Concordance or Bible Hub, Blue Letter Bible, things like that. So, uh, but uh, but anyway, yeah. Getting back to what you were saying um, about apostasy, it is it's this falling away from the truth. And you would think for someone to fall from the truth, they must first know the truth. So do you see this as people from the church, or just like a worldwide thing?
Be from both. From people who we were created to know that there's a higher power, and we want to know that higher power. And they're grasping for anything that they can understand. And some people with this attitude, well, if I can't see God, then he doesn't exist. Why doesn't he show himself to me? And then you have these beings, or this alien gospel, say, oh, we created you. Here we are. You can physically see us. You can touch us. So I believe that it's both the people of the world and the people of the church. If they have questions about, well, where is God? I can't see him. I've never really felt physically close to him. And then they see a being, or they come in contact with one of these UFOs, they can easily grasp for that as being their God.
That makes a lot of sense. That's a really good point. Yeah, that usually is, when we try to witness to people. That's something that we hear quite often, is, if God is real, where is he? I can't see him. So when people do have some type of supernatural experience, like say a UFO sighting, or even an abduction, it's easy for them to kind of latch on to that, to the source of that, as a replacement for God. That doesn't always mean that they'll worship them or anything like that, but in a way they do. But they look at that as their higher power. So that's a really good point. I would agree. I think it's going to be the church and the world, because the world does have the potential for God. We all do. We all have the potential to see God and to know him, but not all are going to want to take that route, especially when they have, these beings, or even when the Antichrist comes on the scene. He's going to be there in the flesh, and saying that he's our savior. So which is easier to accept, somebody that you can see right in front of you, or an invisible God? So yeah, I would definitely agree with what with what you were saying there.
Yeah.
So what do you? Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. I was gonna ask you what your thoughts are. There's always been people falling away from faith. In the church, ever since the church was created, there's always been people falling away from faith. So what do you believe makes this apostasy significant?
Oh, well, there's a lot to it. They can show, well, with many of the stories that you've heard of people being abducted or coming in contact, they will flat out come out and say that there was no God, that they are their creator. Jesus Christ never came in the flesh. They will show you their quote unquote power of what they can do. And I believe that that's a big indication that this is a big deal, and it can go worldwide, completely. It's People won't take the text of the Bible and see the miracles there, and they won't take them for truth. But they, like I said, if they see it, they can believe it. And with many stories, I know there was. I believe we were watching one of the Watcher series that Ellen Mazzilli put out, where they somebody came in contact with one of these beings, and they had stopped an insect in midair and said, now we can track this DNA anywhere from anywhere in the planet. We don't need to put a tracking device in you. We already have the DNA. So that is pretty powerful. And of course they're going to use that, and they're using it out of fear and not out of love. That's a big thing too. So a lot of people are scared into believing in these things as a god and not our actual true God.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's another interesting point too, because a lot of people think that these alien implants that are reported, that they're just tracking devices, and I know when I first heard of that, I thought the same thing. I thought, well, if that's really happening, that's probably what they are. But yeah, I remember that too, and I don't remember which video it was, but it was in the Watcher series where somebody said that a supposed alien told a person that they were able to track DNA. They didn't need an implant to do it. So, that kind of brings up the question: if it's not for tracking, what are these implants for? What do you think?
It's hard to say. We've heard many different theories on it, and I tend to believe that it could be a DNA changing device. It makes the most sense to me. And this, and it could be that they're using it as a fear factor as well. Like, actually, for some people. With other experiments, if they can track your DNA from anywhere in the planet, maybe I don't know, they can use this device for something. I'm not sure. Maybe I tend to believe that it is something with the DNA changing your body or their body. And who knows what they can do with it, because it makes the most sense to me.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I've heard different theories about it too. And the top two really seem to be either the tracking thing or the DNA changing thing. And if it's between those two, then I would lean more towards the DNA changing thing because of the theological implications that can get into the mark of the beast and all that stuff. And anybody that's familiar with L.A. Marzulli is already familiar with that. And if there are those out there who aren't familiar with him, I would highly suggest his materials. They are awesome. But something else that you said too, that the end time apostasy is going to be something worldwide, and I believe that too, because if the apostasy is something where they're falling away from the truth, and the truth is in the church, it's the gospel, our Bibles. Well, the church is worldwide. I mean, for the most part, there's probably still a couple countries out there who haven't heard the gospel, but for it's worldwide. So I think this also would have to be a worldwide deception, and something immediate and something the majority probably won't expect. And actually, it brings up one of my most quoted Bible verses. Hosea 4:6 says that God's people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And I think that's what we see here, because not enough people are really looking into this. Actually, there's more non-Christians looking into this phenomena than there are Christians. You just don't hear this stuff preached in churches or anything like that. It's kind of interesting with our upbringing, because I was brought up really traditional Baptist, and I know you were brought up more charismatic, which is like two totally opposite ends of the spectrum, and then you and I kind of got together and met in the middle. But when in your church, or the church that you were brought up in that type of environment, it seems like that they would be more open to these types of theories, maybe. But I don't know. I mean, was that ever addressed? Did they ever talk about aliens or anything like that?
In church, no, they never discussed this. Never. In my family, my dad was in the military, and before he was in the military, he didn't believe these things ever existed. And there was a story he told me is he was working with the radar and he saw something. He was with somebody. They saw something come on the radar. Excuse me, and then all of a sudden disappeared within seconds. It was there and then it was gone. And then he said from then on he believes that there's something out there.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. There's a lot of reports like that out there, but yeah, the church just it won't touch it for some reason, and I believe that people are going through something. People that experience these things, they're seeing something and they don't know how to reconcile it. The church doesn't, for the most part, doesn't provide an answer. Those like you and I, there are people out there that are trying to, but it's a small group, and so hopefully we can open some eyes with that. But I think for the past few decades, especially, though it does go much further back than that, but there's been a major increase in reports of UFO sightings and alien abductions. And talking about how this isn't discussed in the church, I remember it was something that I asked about a lot in the church that I grew up in. And not only the pastor, but even my friends, family, and it basically came to, there were three different answers that I would get. Either, everybody that claims this stuff is lying or mistaken. That was one. Two, they really are life forms on other planets and they're interacting with us. So there was a small group that actually believed they were aliens. That didn't come up too much in the church, but just with my own friends and stuff like that. Or three, it's some kind of satanic deception. And basically, like how it was explained to me is basically this. Well, that's just demons. That's it. That was the only explanation. So, where does that leave somebody? How are we to explain that? Like if we're witnessing to somebody in maybe an atheist or somebody even of another religion asks about aliens, are we just going to say, oh, that's just all demons? That's good. We need to be able to explain what we mean by that. We need to be able to at least give some kind of Bible verse, but the Bible really makes no direct mention of life on other planets. The idea that alien life is real, interacting with us, and God didn't tell us about it. It doesn't really seem to line up with His nature. 1 Corinthians 14:33 tells us that God is not the author of confusion. So I don't really. I think if there is alien life out there, I think that it's so far removed from us, we're never going to interact with it, and it's nothing we ever have to think about. I don't believe that the things that are interacting with us are extraterrestrial in nature. I believe that they are extra-dimensional in nature. And that's actually something I talk about in my new book, Quantum Creation. I forgot the title of it for a second. My brain's fried from working on it so much, but by the time that this episode airs, I pre-record all my episodes, so I don't know if the book is out yet. As of the time of recording this, it's not, but it might be by the time this airs. So check ministudyministry.com for that. But that's something that I deal with. The reports of UFO activity, they are increasing. They're being made by more and more credible witnesses. We're hearing it from politicians, not that they're credible witnesses, but we hear it from actually people of status. It's not just farmers and hillbillies anymore. If I can use those terms, we're actually seeing people in the government. The Mexican government even a couple of years ago filmed some UFOs, which is actually a part of the video I put together. We're going to be looking at in just a second, but so. The reports of these UFOs, they're increasing, and they're even being covered on the news all the time now. A couple of years ago, I put together a video of some of the, just a handful of the UFO manifestations that have been reported on the news. So those of you who are just listening to the audio of this, you'll just hear some music for a couple of minutes. Actually, you'll hear excuse me, that's the next one. You'll hear the audio of the news reports, but the video, if you go to my YouTube page, youtube.com/Josh Peck Disclosure, you'll actually be able to see the video of these news reports. So I put this together a couple years ago, so it's actually already outdated because there's way more now. You can just go on YouTube and you can look at from CNN or MSNBC or whatever your Fox News, whatever you want to look at. These things are actually reported. So I'm going to put the video on now. So when watching the video, remember Proverbs 18:13. He that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him. So, just examine the evidence for yourself with everything. And so we're going to look at that video first. I have two videos for you. We're going to look at the news ones, the news one first. So here is that.
UFO sightings are skyrocketing in 2012. We're barely 2 weeks in, states, and yeah, Florida's included.
Now, though, the politics of UFOs. Mexican Air Force pilots capturing on videotape what are said to be 11, count them, 11 UFOs, unidentified flying objects. They are officially that. Bright objects, some sharp points of light moving quickly across the sky. The tape called historic by some. Members of the Mexican Defense Department saying it's the first time UFOs have had the backing of any country's armed forces. Now, a group of activists calling on the United States government to end what it says is an embargo on the truth about extraterrestrial life.
The surveys were initially sparked by a mysterious object floating under the spacecraft yesterday. It was detected shortly after a routine check of the shuttle's steering jets. Now, since Columbia, NASA developed several tools and procedures to safeguard the shuttle while in space. Known objects are. NASA admits they may never know exactly what the unknown objects are.
Yes. Wait a minute. Whoa! Guys, everyone out here! Guys, come here! Brian, come look at this! Centerville, a buzz tonight, a bright blue light spotted moving in the sky last night. We're told a lot of people saw it, but no one seems to have an explanation for this unidentified flying object.
Stopped and we were like astonished.
Smith and her family were at King's Dominion when they saw this black floating ring in the sky.
Is this the end of the world? What is going on?
King's Dominion says the ring is smoke from a ride called Volcano.
I'm thinking that it might be what King's Dominion said it was, the ring of smoke.
Hi, Brad. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. How are you today? Outside, you need to go check them out. And we walked outside and we looked up and it was just kind of, total amazement. We looked at it for quite a while. I ran in. I'm a big CNN watcher. Ran in, I grabbed my camera, and we started filming, right away. So it was just amazing. It's hard to even describe, but they just sat there. They didn't move. They stayed in one position as far as in the same area. And then they just started making different formations. So it was very hard to explain, but very exciting all at the same time. And I think you can hear that from the video.
A UFO in China's skies forced Zhoushan Airport to stop operations on July 7th. Outbound flights were grounded after the unidentified flying object was detected by a flight crew. The incident has captured the attention of Chinese media. Theories about the UFO's identity are burning up on the internet as well. They include everything from a hidden U.S. bomber to an elaborate man-made hoax. For now, the UFO continues to be a mystery. A spokesman from China's Civil Aviation Administration confirmed to ABC News that the matter is under investigation.
Some Chinese residents are on edge this morning after another apparent UFO sighting. It's the second one in 2 weeks. The first sighting was on July 7th, and an airport had to be shut down.
All right, that's a UFO if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, can you identify
it? That's undeniable.
The airport had to be shut down after people apparently saw twinkling lights above the airport terminal. 17 flights had to be diverted. The latest sighting happened just 2 days ago, and people say they saw 4 lantern-like objects forming a diamond shape in the air, hovering in the sky for over an hour. And aviation experts say they don't know what it was. It wasn't a plane.
High above the earth, grouped together with no explanation. These clips show what's being described as swarms of UFOs.
Or MUFON says it's investigating sightings of bright lights shooting and hovering craft sighted Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday over Kansas City.
Scientists from all over the world are trying to figure out what caused a mysterious blue light to spiral in the sky over Norway on Wednesday.
As UFO sightings go, this one was as good or as weird as it gets.
A light appearing high in the Arctic sky, baffling those who saw it and exciting a lot of comment. Early yesterday morning, just before dawn, this appeared in the Norwegian sky. A blue light, small at first, growing into a spiral and then disappearing into what appeared to be a black hole. In the northern community of Trøndelag and on a Norwegian military base, cell phones snapped, video cameras rolled, and bloggers got busy.
Tonight, Norwegian authorities are investigating strange lights seen in the Arctic sky. The spiraling white light was seen for several minutes Wednesday morning. Locals say the light appeared to be bigger than the moon. Thousands of Norwegians bombarded the Meteorological Institute to ask what that light could have possibly been. Some feared it could have been a meteor, others a black hole, and there are even those that thought it could be aliens.
A strange spiralling white light was spotted in the early morning sky over Sydney, with even sceptical witnesses wondering if it was a UFO. The unusual sight was recorded by hundreds of people from Victoria north to Queensland.
A spiral in the sky around a bright light.
Scientists left baffled by an unexplained circular light seen hovering high over Moscow on Wednesday evening. People described seeing a wide circular formation in the sky. Footage capturing the spectacle will help whether scientists and specialists find an explanation for the event.
The 3 lights are close to each other, then spread out into this triangle pattern. Now, look at the patterns side by side. This from Manhattan and the other tonight in El Paso. I gotta tell you, they do look eerily similar.
Hill believes the latest mystery lights over Lake Erie are from a higher power, a benevolent entity that for some reason is making more frequent visits to our area.
Does it scare you at all?
A little bit, but I mean, I'm a little optimistic. If it's something beneficial for us, then I am very excited. And
all right, so that was that was UFOs that were reported on the news, and again, that's just a handful of them, and that's even outdated. A lot of those are there's way more now. But even NASA has captured UFOs on film and in pictures. So I put together a video of that. Those of you who follow the show might recognize the music. That was actually the music for the commercial I put together for the Doug Woodward and Doug Hamp debate. That's actually where the music came from. Was I made this NASA UFO video a year or two ago, I think, and I created this music for that. So if you recognize the music, that's what that's from. Again, those just listening, you're just going to hear music for a couple of minutes. If you actually want to see the videos, go to my YouTube channel. So again, these are NASA videos that captured UFOs on film and in pictures. So here's this video. All right, so that was NASA's footage. Now, while there are many more videos out there, and really even more recent ones, I tried to include only the most credible. There's a lot of videos out there that are fake, but they're usually pretty easy to recognize. I didn't include any that I really had to question too much. Of course, with any video like that, there's going to be some question, but I just tried to include, those that seemed like they're most likely reliable. There were a lot more I could have included, but I just kept it to what looked the most real. So with that, I'll hand it back over to you, Christina.
Okay. And there's, like you said, there's a lot of sightings and a lot of reports being made by people of all status. A lot of people are in it for money and fame, if you want to call it fame. It's not exactly anything to be proud about, seeing a UFO, or, you've got some pretty crazy people out there too, just running their mouth for no reason. And then, of course, you have a lot of people on the other side who say, oh, there's no such thing. Really? There's no such thing as a UFO, an unidentified flying object. Apparently there's nothing unidentified. So, but no, there are many things out there that you cannot identify. And it's becoming more and more popular. And we've seen this gradual throughout the years, but they've always been there. Always. We didn't really start seeing more of them until the 40s. But they're even becoming more brave now. And this is causing a lot of people to fall away from the church. And like we said before, they can see these things, they can touch them, they speak to them, and that's what they take as their God. And it's very easy to become deceived by these things. I've had a few experiences, and they're nothing I want to deal with ever. And it just makes me want to run the other way. I remember for a long time before we came into this, I was more afraid of them because I didn't understand what they were than of demons themselves. Because I had no idea what these things were. I'm like, how could there be a physical being that God created out there that can do such evil? And they look so evil. And some people just run to them with open arms. Like, oh, yes, you are my God. You are my creator. No, I don't understand these people. And it's just disturbing.
Yeah. I mean, I remember we watched the documentary Sirius, and they documented, that's a very pro-alien documentary, but to kind of see where the world is with that sort of stuff, I would recommend it for that reason, not to get any kind of good information or theology out of it, but there are those in that documentary that are involved in something called CE5. They'll try to contact alien entities and bring forth UFOs by opening the mind in an attempt to establish telepathic connections. In a sense, they're praying to them. They won't call it that. They don't recognize it as that, but that's what they're doing. And they are, they're believing that these things created us. And when we think about it, these practices are similar to New Age or occult methods that are clearly prohibited by the Bible.
Yeah, they are praying to them, and no, they won't call it that. And when we were watching the documentary, how they would actually talk to them, or they'd actually have these lights appear in the sky, or when we would watch things on the crop circles, and these little balls of light would in seconds create like these cultish designs in corn or grass or what have you. And it's nothing you want to fool with. I don't understand why these people are chasing after it. If anything, it still scares me the other way. And we have been we've been fed these things over the year. I mean, it started way back with movies in the 30s and 40s, War of the Worlds, books. Even if you want to get into Star Wars and things like that, it's kind of preparing us for, like, this is normal, this is okay, this is stuff that's happened. That, you know, it kind of dumbs it down. And then you have some things that were written on the other side of it that is more truthful. What was the movie Dark Skies that we saw? It was, and that was definitely more realistic, on the more realistic side of what these things are and what their agenda is. And they are slowly introducing, they're slowly telling us what their agenda is, more and more, with each sighting or with each new story that comes out, and you can easily weed through and tell what is accurate and what's not. And they're slowly telling us what we want to hear, but you can see the dark side too, and what they're really planning.
Yeah, absolutely. And the people that they're getting some people away from the church, and then they're preventing others from accepting, church beliefs or biblical beliefs. Typically the people that'll go to the lengths to try to contact these things, usually they're not Christian, but more and more are falling away from the church to pursue these other beliefs, and practices, which the Bible reveals the source. And I think over there you have the Bible verse and some statistics. So why don't you share those with us?
Okay, no problem. It's Timothy chapter 4, verse 1. Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. There are people that are clearly falling away from the truth, and they're following these apostasies, the Gnostic gospels. They're just full of this stuff. And there are, statistics are now showing that 6% of the world's population has sighted a UFO. And 4% have claimed that they have been abducted by these aliens. And at some point, that equates to being in the hundreds of millions of people. Out of 7 billion people on this planet, that's hundreds of millions of people. That's a lot of people. And at least 75% of UFO sightings remain probable after exhaustive studies. In 1998, the number of reported UFOs were in the double digits, between 70 and 90. And now the number is nearly in the thousands. Obviously, there's a lot going on that we need to look into, and people need to wake up.
Yeah, that's a huge increase. I mean, even if you just think between 70 and 90, that's still a lot. 1 is a lot with something that's this huge. But from 98 till now, it's exponentially grown to be in the thousands. Like that is crazy. And that all those people are having these experiences, and they're sharing their experiences with others without having really any idea of what the truth behind it is. And that's on us. That's on the church. That's our responsibility. We're supposed to be giving the truth. We're supposed to always be ready to give an answer, that type of thing. And it's just crazy that the majority of the church is willing to just not address it, even though people are falling away from the church because of it, or people are getting into things like Gnosticism, like you mentioned before, or New Age, or things that teach that there are other paths to heaven besides Jesus. And Jesus said that there is only one path, but the path to hell is broad. So I discuss in my book Disclosure that the Bible does make many references to super intelligent beings with, in my opinion, with technology far superior to our own, who come from outside of our world. But the Bible calls them angels. Now there have been some out there that that'll make the argument that, well, technically angels are extraterrestrial because they come from elsewhere than the Earth. We hear that kind of logic on shows like Ancient Aliens and things like that. But I find that association to kind of be misleading and really inaccurate. Extraterrestrial seems to denote a physical being from another planet, while angels are spiritual and physical, in a sense, beings from another dimension. I think extra-dimensional would be a more appropriate term than to say extraterrestrial. That's another thing I deal with in my new book, Quantum Creation. But of course, you could just say angels. It's basically the same thing.
Yes. It does make more sense that these things can be extra-dimensional other than extraterrestrial. The way these things move in and out of our dimension, they're here one moment and then they disappear the next. The way the mechanics are, the way they move, caught at 90-degree angles, going who knows how many hundreds of miles an hour. It's just something that they can operate in this dimension with. I know you and I have had many discussions of like that. How would we operate in a two-dimensional space? If I went to flat land, how would we get around? We would have to build something, a device, something that we can maneuver in the second dimension with. And these things are in the fourth or fifth or whatever dimension that they need something to get around in our dimension with. And it goes with a lot of things. There's a lot of things that they see kind of coming in and out of, like the strings or whatever that we've seen on Discovery Truth or something. Can't remember the name of the show. But these little like specks would come in and out of focus or in and out of dimensions where you could see it through one side, and then there's this big space and you can see the other side of it. Who's to say what's in the other dimensions? But I believe these UFOs are just a craft that this is the only thing that we can. This is how we describe it. This is how we see it. I mean, John saw lots of things in Revelation that he couldn't really explain, other than what he can physically experience in the third dimension. Of course, he was taken up into the heavens, but there's no other way to really explain it if you haven't been there to see it, other than, hey, this is what I can describe it as being in a third dimension.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you think about it in terms of flatland, like you brought up, if you take a two-dimensional being who can only, who has two-dimensional vision, and bring him into the third dimension, he's still not going to be able to see the third dimension. He's built for two. He's just going to see a series of different colored lines, changing color and changing length and all that. So I think I believe that John gave us a very detailed and just an awesome description of what he saw. But I do believe that he was, heaven is in a dimension higher than our own, and I believe that he, being human, was still in his three-dimensional vision. So he did the best with best he could with what he had. Yeah. And I think it's interesting what you brought up about UFOs and how they maneuver in and out of our dimension, because I was actually thinking about this in writing my book, and I think that there's at least two different types of ways or crafts that they use to kind of get about in our dimension. Because I was thinking about how if there was a two-dimensional universe, if there was a flat land, if it was real, how could I, as a three-dimensional being, operate in that dimension? I can't flatten myself, that'd kill me. I can't flatten myself to operate in that. I could either breach the dimension, like say you could stick your hand through it, and the Flatlander would see, ever-changing circles or however that would look to two-dimensional vision. I could do it that way. I could build a type of craft in my own dimension that could breach it and then still move around in it. But again, it would still be a three-dimensional, craft. Like if you drove a car through Flatland, they're not going to see the whole car. They're going to see a two-dimensional shape grow in size and then get smaller and zap out of existence. So that's one way. The other way is I could use two-dimensional materials to build a vehicle there, and then if I had the technology to do it, I could transfer my consciousness into that vehicle and then be able to operate. And I think that might be what we're seeing with some of these UFO manifestations. In Ezekiel, it actually says that the spirit was in the wheels. Yeah. So I think it's possible that some of these UFOs could actually be built here, but are still maneuvered by extra-dimensional beings. And when I first started thinking about that was when you first told me the UFO encounter you had that you're gonna share with us a little later. But there was something in there that kind of led me to think that, because I thought, okay, why would it look like that? And but I don't want to get too much of that just yet. But then there are craft that they do look really sleek. But they're able to change shape, and they're able to split off into two different things, and it's really weird. And like you said, they're able to make 90-degree angle turns at hundreds of miles an hour, and the aliens aren't getting smashed on the inside walls of their craft. So how else can that happen if they're not interdimensional? I think a question too would come up: why would angels need a vehicle in the first place? I don't know, but the Bible, it seems to say that they do. When we read in Ezekiel, it talks about and these are good angels, but it talks about the four living creatures, or the four beasts in Revelation, but it's the four living creatures that they inhabit these wheels that, on top of there's a firmament and then the throne of God. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that's like a spaceship or anything. It is what it is. It's some sort of heavenly chariot of some kind. I don't know all the inner workings of it, but it is a type of craft. It's a type of vehicle. So for whatever reason, they have access to them, and I think the fallen angels, I think that they have access to them too, but maybe have had to build their own here, which is why we see some other ones that are maybe a little bit more beat up or a little bit more three-dimensional looking. But yeah, exactly. But so speaking of angels, tell us what tell us some stuff about angels.
About angels? Okay, sure. Well, of course, we have the good angels that we hear a lot of in the Bible. They're messengers. That Gabriel and with the birth of Christ, coming to the shepherds, of course, the conception of Jesus, Gabriel telling Mary, was it Gabriel? Am I right? I'm sorry, my mind's blinking. And these, of course, we have the good angels, and how in Revelation throughout the Bible, these angels worshiping God and singing praises unto Him. And then, of course, on the other side, Lucifer decided to get a little group together and just go against God. And of course, he took a third of the angels with him. And so they aren't bound anywhere yet. So they're running around doing the work of Satan, as they want to do. And I really do believe that's where what these things are, and how these aliens are. I believe they are the fallen angels, because they still have the knowledge of these. Like, God has created He's creator of everything. Physics, everything. Of course, they're going to have some of that knowledge. If the benevolent angels, if I know there's been stories in the past where people have seen some certain crafts and they don't get a bad feeling from it, and they feel that, okay, this is kind of a positive thing, and then on the other side it's a very negative thing. So I believe, what one side has, the other one has too. The devil knows some of what the future holds, and that's where, it's a whole nother story. What God uses for good is used for evil. Down to the most minuscule thing, even playing cards. It can be used, it's just a normal game for some people, and then other people use it for the occult. It's one of those things. And we're told in Ephesians that Satan is the prince of the power of the air. And we know at least once before the fallen angels made with humans and the human woman and created the Nephilim back in Genesis. And this could be what they're possibly doing again in a different way. They know what happened the first time, so they're trying it a different way, like a loophole. They come down in Genesis, they mate with the women, or now this time they're just doing it DNA splicing and kind of test tube creation, if you will.
Yeah, I would agree with you that it might be a kind of loophole, because we do read that the ones that are bound, it was because of this sin of mating, the angels mating with human women. Because of that sin, they're bound. Now, that doesn't mean all fallen angels are bound, because clearly they're not. Right. This is just the group. Yeah, this is just the group that committed this specific sin. But yeah, I think that it might be that the reason that they're taking the more genetic manipulation route now is sort of like there might be a kind of loophole in that, not making it right, but direct copulation seemed to result in that being bound in chains thing with the abyss and all that stuff. So maybe with this genetic splicing, it's still horrible and still a sin, but they might be buying themselves time with that.
It's brutal too, and it's gory and it's ugly. And they are going to pay for it someday.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another thing I discuss in my book is that Jacques Vallée, he's a UFO researcher, and he didn't have a Christian perspective or anything. He's just secular, regular, non-believer. But he studied these things extensively, and even he came to the conclusion that they were extra-dimensional. And I read a paper of his that gave 5 really compelling reasons. I went through a couple in my book, but one of them was concerning these medical experiments that they do, because Jacques Vallée brought up the fact that the people that go through these medical procedures, the next day they'll have scars on their bodies. They'll have scoop marks, let's say, or there's visible signs that something happened. Many times they won't remember, but it can be they can recall it with hypnosis, things like that. Well, Jacques Vallée brought up the point that if they are so technologically advanced, why can't they do better than that? Because with our technology today, just our human modern medical technology, we can do the same things without leaving scoop marks or without leaving marks at all. We could do it in a way that the person would not remember at all. We have things like anesthesia. All the hypnosis in the world isn't going to bring back anything that you've experienced while under anesthesia, because you're not conscious during it. So there's that aspect. Also, a lot of times the beings will bring the person onto the UFO to do these experiments, and it's usually taking out genetic material. But if you could actually find a doctor who makes house calls, nowadays, all that stuff could be done within the home. They shouldn't need to do that. So the question comes up, if they supposedly, if they were really extraterrestrial and they can build these spaceships that can travel all these light years to get here, why is their medical progress so stunted in those regards, especially if they're able to create, alien human hybrids? And to me, it's like, well, because they really don't care about us, they don't care how much they're hurting us. They got their medical program up to a point to where it needed to be, and they didn't want to progress beyond that because it doesn't matter if they hurt us, and it actually helps their cause if they leave a little bit of trace behind, And also, I don't think they're extraterrestrials, as we talked about. I think they're extra dimensional. I think they're fallen angels, but they do it so subtle in a way that there's enough evidence left behind that makes people question, but it's not so much that it shows that they're not trying to hide it, So I think that that there's something that. So when we look at the reports, it is extremely similar to Genesis 6 activity. People have reported being abducted by beings in UFOs and performed various medical procedures, tests, examinations, and they take out this genetic material to create alien-human hybrids in what's usually called a hybridization breeding program. And as we stated, the judgment for the angels mating with humans is to be bound in the bottomless pit. So this could be why the fallen angels, posing as aliens, have to use more technological means to create maybe a modern-day Nephilim. That they found a loophole to stave off judgment for for at least a little while. So I'll hand it back over to you. That was my little thing.
What they do, it is mutilation, and it is disturbing and disgusting what they do to these people. And I don't understand why a lot of people just write it off, like, oh, that's not important. Oh, that's just crazy. It's all sci-fi. But a lot of this sci-fi is actually becoming science fact. It's kind of funny that through the years, in the old Star Trek series that they were using cell phones, and now we have cell phones way before cell phones even came out. And with the medical thing, I really do believe that they are just leaving enough evidence behind to say, hey, yeah, we were here. And they don't care what they do. They hate God's creation. And they want to do everything in their power to destroy God's creation. And it's so twisted how they can say, oh, no, yes, we are your gods. We seated you here. We, so to speak, we kind of own you. You are our slaves, and you're in debt to us. And then they'll go to the other side where it's even worse, where they mutilate them. Cattle. Of course, we've seen a lot of things on cattle and livestock, and crop circles. Very interesting designs that I don't believe human beings know some of these designs. Some are just so weird and cultish, and of course a lot of them depict a lot of the designs in cultish, books and things like that. So I do believe that it plays a very strong part in the occult. Like we discussed earlier, people tapping into these beings so that they can hear them talking to them and appearing in their room, and it's very disturbing that they choose these things to be their gods. And
and all they have to offer is really deception. We went through a couple of the things that these beings will tell people. What are some of the things that these supposed aliens will tell people?
Oh, they will say that there is no God. they are their God. That they just the idea of an all-powerful God, our God, is flawed. You know, Jesus never came. There is no Trinity. You can become your own God, basically, in the New Age, you know, movement, and you know, you can just tap into yourself, and they've kind of changed their stories over the years. You know, before we entered outer space and our exploration of the moon and things like that, they said, oh, well, we come from the moon. Oh, no, well, we come from Mars. Well, no, it's Jupiter. Now it's way off in the Pleiades, and, you know, what is it called? Zeta Reticuli. Places like this. I did say, okay, you know, if we ever get the technology to go there, oh, no, we're not from there. We're from somewhere further out. They like to change the story. So it is very deceptive, and that's why I really do believe that it is an extra-dimensional instead of extraterrestrial. And a lot of these things where the people, even under hypnosis, that recall what they were told by these beings, or you know, what places they're from, or some have said, oh yeah, well they took me to their planet. Probably not. Probably another place underground and here on Earth. I do believe that they are working deep underground. I have lots of stories of that too. Going back to these things have always, you know, they're fallen angels, and they've always been trying to deceive us since they become fallen. You know, one side wants to win, and they're trying their hardest. It's the same lie that's been going on for centuries, and with the cultic side, the New Age, tapping into yourself, that you will become like God or your own God. There is no right. There is no wrong. And this is what caused Adam and Eve to fall in the garden. They in a sense, they knew it would be wrong to sin. They did it anyway. Well, Eve did it, and then Adam followed. But they knew it was wrong. But then they definitely knew after that you know, everything became aware. They were aware. Like, oh, okay, yeah, this is definitely a no-no. But it just makes more sense. Sorry, I'm going off on a little tangent. It just makes more sense that they would be interdimensional or extra-dimensional instead of traveling thousands of light years to see us. Why would anything have any desire to come see us? We're not, you know, from thousands of light years away from another planet. Who cares? Who would care? I mean, I'm sure, you know, our human curiosity, we want to see what's out there, but if we saw a civilization, and, you know, do you really think that our number one thing would be to, as these things say, oh, we're here to give you a little boost in the right direction, or we're, you know, you're primitive compared to us, or no, I really think that'd be the furthest thing from our mind, going to see if we saw a civilization on another planet. Oh, here's a boost in the right direction. Probably not the first thing we would do.
Yeah, we're not gonna. If we had the technology to do it, if we discovered a civilization, you know, a million light years away, we're not gonna only travel there just to tell them that God isn't real. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's ridiculous, and that's what they're doing. They're coming here to tell us that, you know, God's not real. God's just an impersonal force that you can tap into, and it's you know, it is really new agey, and it's just. Where's the sense in that? You know, I try to go with what's most logical. You know, the simplest, most logical answer, and that's, you know, I keep saying it, but I do get into a lot of that in my new book. But I'll also I get into it in disclosure, so anybody that's interested, that is available now. But But yeah, I mean, it brings up a lot of questions like that, like you brought up. Does it make sense that aliens would travel millions of light years just to tell us that God isn't real?
Yeah, and then we need help and a push in the right direction with our technology or whatever, which I do believe that some of the technology that we do have, we kind of got from them. I mean, if you look in the engineering, the fiber optics and everything, if you really go into it, it doesn't make sense that we just kind of like, okay, that makes sense. Let's do that. No, I really do believe that we got some of our ideas from them. If even our brilliant minds of the past, Albert Einstein, and how we were talking before, how they're going at 90-degree angles and folding space and time, and they're not harmed. Well, with the Manhattan Project, with Einstein there, Oppenheimer was there, they had this group of people together. Yeah, he was able to fold space, from point A to point B. This object disappeared, and then it reappeared. The people inside, they were embedded in the walls and the ceilings, everything. We cannot handle that.
I think you're thinking of what was it, Manhattan, or was it the Philadelphia experiment?
Yeah, it was Manhattan.
Oh, okay, I get it mixed up.
Yeah, it was Manhattan Project. It was disturbing what happened, and of course they don't really want to talk about that. But I believe that a lot of the ideas came from these so-called aliens. And of course, when the atomic bomb went off, there's a lot of stories that Truman was approached by these men in black, and these so-called beings saying that, oh, well, you guys finally discovered the atom bomb and things like that. Well, now we're going to usher in peace, so you don't destroy yourselves. Why would they care? Once again, if we found out that a civilization hundreds of thousands of light years out there was building bombs, why would we go and say, oh, well, don't do that? And why would we get ourselves in their business? We wouldn't care. Be like, okay, well, you might want to be a little careful, but we're not going to stop you, because we don't care. We don't. Why would these things be like, oh, we want to help you, and don't destroy yourselves? And no, I don't believe that for a second.
Yeah, me either. If they're that advanced and want to help us, why don't they give us the cure to cancer or something?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, let me see here. Yeah, that's something that I've thought a lot about too. Is like, where's the logic in that? If they really want to help us, why is it only spiritually and maybe technologically with things that we could hurt ourselves with? Why isn't it anything medically? Why aren't they telling us how to have better diets even? Why aren't they? It's never any of that. It's never anything that is truly beneficial to humanity. It's always things that work toward their own end, and I think it just all comes back to logic and common sense. If they were here to usher in peace and freedom, why is it only by their lead and under their control?
Exactly.
Why aren't they down here helping us out? And they're always kind of behind the scenes. And I think it's because they don't want to show us how to live in peace with each other. They want to show us how to live under their rule, and they're preparing us for that, like you brought up earlier. And yeah, when you look at the Bible, it's the very thing Satan's wanted to do from the time the time that he fell. That could even be the events that are described in the prophetic book of the Bible, like Book of Revelation and Daniel. But yeah, I definitely believe, and I think we're in agreement, that fallen angels and these supposed aliens are one and the same. Well, one thing that we have to, I think we all have to keep in mind as a church is that none of us knows everything about our prophetic future, and the fact is Satan doesn't even know all of it. Remember, Satan fought so hard to get Jesus crucified, which really only sealed his own doom. So clearly Satan doesn't know everything. I believe that Satan has his hands in a lot of different deceptions. I think Satan does things to kind of test us to see what will deceive us best. Things such as possibly such as Roswell and Fatima. And I get a little bit into that in disclosure, what I mean there. But, I don't believe Satan might not know exactly what deception he's going to run with in the end times to complete his goals, but God does, and he wants us prepared. It makes sense that Satan will use the most effective deception that the least amount of Christians will be looking for. And, in our opinion, and Christina and in my opinion, this would be the alien deception. It's the most effective with the least amount of Christians looking for it. So I think it's important for us to research these things now while we still can. And even if we don't believe in it right now, we can always just file it away for later. It's even possible that the final deception could be a combination of different things. It could be, but God doesn't want us to reject knowledge, and he doesn't want us to be deceived. He gave us all the information we need to know to avoid these things, so all we have to do is put it together and use it. At the very least, we need to study these things and be able to provide an answer for the church, because there are many that are already falling away from God because of this stuff. It might not seem prevalent in our day-to-day lives because most of us don't really have to deal with this stuff, day-to-day. But there are people that do. There are people, even those who haven't had experiences, but it's just an interesting topic. An interest can lead into a hardcore belief pretty fast. So there are people that are falling away from God, even people who didn't know God to begin with, but may have had the potential to, if they weren't led into deception so early. Galatians 1:6-9 reads, "I marvel that ye are so soon removed from him that called you into the grace of Christ unto another gospel, which is not another, but there be some that trouble you, and would pervert the gospel of Christ. But though we, or an angel from heaven, preach any other gospel unto you than that which has been preached unto you, let him be accursed. As we said before, so say I now again, if any man preach another gospel unto you than that ye have received, let him be accursed." There are many other gospels out there, but in my humble opinion, I don't believe any are quite as deceptive or convincing as the alien gospel. So I think we need to learn to test the spirits biblically, whether they appear human, alien, or angelic, because even Satan can appear as an angel of light, as described in 2 Corinthians 11:14. Aliens are just as deceptive. 1 John 4:1-3 reads, "Beloved, believe not every spirit, but try the spirits whether they are of God, because many false prophets are gone out into the world. Hereby know ye the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesseth that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is of God, and every spirit that confesseth not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is not of God. And this is that spirit of Antichrist, whereof ye have heard that it should come, and even now already is it in the world." So God expects us to test the spirits. Just because something may manifest and talk to us, whether it looks like an angel or an alien or whatever, it doesn't mean that we should blindly take what it has to say for truth. We serve a God whose truth is above all and is revealed all to us in his word. So if anything contradicts with that, we need to be strong and sober-minded enough to recognize it as deception. So, I'm hoping that studies such as this can open some eyes, or at the very least help people take in some new considerations. I think if we can avoid deception, Satan really can hold no power over us. And the great news is that the war is already won. We just have to overcome until Jesus returns, so we can claim the victory. We can claim the victory with him. So we don't need to fear these things. I think that about goes through our Bible study. So Christina, you've actually had some first-hand experience with some of these things. I know I can't hear it enough. It's fascinating to me, and it's interesting. But I know there are many out there who have not heard this yet and are dying to hear it. So I will pass it over to you to let you go for it. What have you been through?
Oh my goodness. Well, I grew up in the country, and growing up, you know, my dad told me at a young age his experience, because I went up to him like, "Hey, Daddy, are there such things as aliens?" He's like, "Well, you know, I did see something when I was in the service about the radar, and a buddy of his saw that it come and go on the radar very, very quickly." And so I never really thought about it after that. You know, I grew up, growing up in the country. I lived on a farm. Just kind of looked up at the sky at night. Always loved the stars. Always was very interested in cosmology and astrophysics. Was dead set on becoming a satellite engineer, and I was going to work for NASA. I was going to become an astronaut and work on satellites in space. But that car accident made sure that would never happen. So I'm doing business instead. But I still have a love for the stars, and I guess it's a good thing. If it wasn't the car accident, it would be other things that would stop me from doing it. The car accident happened when I was 14, but I did have an experience when I was 12, back in 1998. It was August. I was at a friend's house. My mom and her mom were very, very good friends, and my friend and I were playing upstairs, and then I asked my mom if she'd be able to come over and stay the night. And so we were getting everything together, and I was helping her pack up, and she's going to have a sleepover at my house. My sister was out in the car sleeping. She wasn't feeling good that day. So I was getting everything together and helping her, and so we were walking outside. It was dark out at this time, and she lived right across from a farm as well. We're out in the country, not a lot of cars, not a lot of traffic at all, just on a back road. And walking out to the car, usually we stop and she says goodbye to her dog. Well, her dog wasn't by the gate. Usually the dog was always by the gate. Just right there barking and wagging her tail and having a good time. And, well, the dog wasn't there, and I'm like, okay, whatever. So we're walking to the car, just had this eerie feeling, just a very eerie feeling. And when we get to the car, I looked back because my mom's coming out of the house, and I saw something reflecting, some lights reflecting off of the garage. The garage was here, house was here, and then there was some trees over on the side. And I just kind of looked, and they were red and blue, and there was a little bit of a light, and I thought it was an ambulance at first because I saw the red and the blue, but I didn't hear any sirens. I'm looking towards the road. There's nothing. But then I look over, I see this huge spaceship, enormous spaceship. And it was not very far off the ground. There was a tree that was maybe 50 feet, and it was maybe 25 feet up from that. So between 75 and 100 feet, I'd say it was from the ground. Not very, and it was very low humming sound. The lights were not so bright that everybody was looking. There was just little bits of light coming off. And I saw this band around it. It was like a thin white band. And when you see sound waves on a monitor or a heart rate goes like this, that's how it was. And it was humming. It was going, that's the only sound that it came from. It was very low humming sound. And all of this happened so fast, but it felt like an eternity. I then, my mom came around the car, was knocking on the window for my sister to wake up, and she was not waking up. Taking a very long time for her to wake up. And I'm actually picking up my friend. She was a big girl. She was bigger than me. I'm actually trying to throw her into the car. I'm like, open the door, open the door, open the door. And she's like, what? I was like, just get in there, just get in there. I'm screaming at her. And meanwhile, I'm looking at this spaceship. I can see the beings inside. It was so close. The lights were on in the cabin, and it had triangle windows like this, and then there was another from this triangle, and it would go off like this, and then go off like this all the way around. And the spaceship itself looked very beat up. It looked like it had chunks missing out of it, and there was writing right down the front of it. There was, I will never forget, there was a spiral, there was a triangle, there was this thing that looked like a half of a T, and it just right down, looked like hieroglyphics. And I remember the being looking at me. He was just staring at me, and he was trying. It just was so disgusting, and very sickening. Just looking at me, and I saw his hands. He had 4 fingers, and it was like so evil, and just nothing but pure evil on his face. And I don't know if it was to scare me or what, but I think it was a fear thing where he took his hands or his finger and he just like wrapped them around his arm and his wrist and then long bony fingers, and he just looked at me. It was this disgusting look on his face, and there was this, at the point there was this blue light coming down from the center of the ship. It was a pale blue light, and there was white particles coming together. I don't know if it was a transportation thing where one was actually coming down and manifesting. I can't say for sure. I don't know. But finally my sister woke up and the door was unlocked, and I threw my friend into the car. Just threw her right in there, and I was shaking and crying hysterically, and my mom's like, "What's happening? What happened?" I looked behind to see this thing. It kind of did this number, went back, and did another thing, and then took off. Just like a little spiral like this, up, another spiral, then gone. And I told her it took about 5 minutes to get my composure. And I said, "Mom, I just saw a UFO." And she said, "Okay, I'm going to go get her mom. She's not sleeping here alone tonight." She went in, and she told my sister, "Get the girls back to the house. I'm going to come with her mom as soon as we get everything together." So, and on the way home, that's when my sister saw it, and my friend. It was by this point, it was a big ball in the sky, and it was following, but it didn't follow us home, but it was somewhat trailing, and then it took off. That was the first experience, like close encounter that I've had.
What did you happen to see? Like what kind of species of ET or ED these were? Like what did they look like?
They were very tall, gangly, and they were peach. They were not grays. I had some people I've talked to in the past who were quote-unquote specialists in this department, like, "Are you sure they weren't gray? Because we don't know the peach guy." And I'm like, "No, they were peach. They were peach. Peach. Not gray. No gray." I know it's more popular to see the gray, apparently, but I saw peach. They were very bony. They had the big black almond eyes. Horrifying. Absolutely horrifying.
Wow. Yeah, I can't even imagine that. You had another encounter too where then they got in your house or something like that. What happened with that one?
Okay, that was years later. That was in 2004 or 5. Hold on. That was in September of 2004. 2004. And I was downstairs on the computer, and it was about midnight. I was getting kind of tired. I was getting offline from talking to my friends and going upstairs. I was in the basement, and we have a quad level home. And so I go up one set of stairs. I'm in the family room, and then I go up the second set of stairs, which is kind of like the main level, and that's where our dining room was, our kitchen, our foyer, and then another bathroom. Then I go up the final set of stairs, which was where my parents' room was, a study, and my bedroom. And by this time, my sister and I were sharing the bedroom because her room was being remodeled. So I get into bed, and then she had a big day bed. So she had the day bed part, I had the trundle part, and I pushed it together and got into bed and was laying on my back, and I kind of felt the bed shift. This kind of felt like being pulled away. So I was like, oh, okay. I woke up and I just pulled it back closer to the bed, and then I was laying there again. I could feel it shift again. And I was kind of confused. I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on. And then I sort of heard, I heard something going on the roof. At first I thought it was a raccoon or something got in the attic. Like I said, we live out in the country. Anything could be there. Possum, bats. So, or one of the cats even, because cats would get into our attic. And there was a tree right outside my bedroom window. So anything could have climbed up there. Well, then I could hear things drop on the roof, and it was like boom, boom. And one of our cats was sleeping in the study at this time, and I was like, oh, that's weird, and I could feel the bed shift again, and then I could hear scratching at the walls. I was like, that's not in the attic. And then all of a sudden, I heard something walk out into the hallway. Like it was my mom and dad's room at the end of the hallway, their bathroom. The study was the middle room, and then mine was at the front of the house. And I could hear it, and I was walking towards my room, and all of a sudden I shot out of bed. I was like, Dad, wake up. And then he instantly woke up. He was like, yes. I was like, Daddy, come here. And everything just kind of stopped for a moment. But before, hold on, let me back up. Before I called for my dad, I heard the cat just fly out of the bedroom. He just jumped down. He didn't even hit the steps going down. He just jumped all the way down, like 6 or 7 steps that we had. And the commotion was still going on, so that's when I screamed for my dad. And he came into the hallway, turned on the light, looked into the study, and he's like, mm-hmm. That's all he said was, mm-hmm. And then I was like, my dad was so calm. He was such a calm man. And then I came into the bedroom, and I said, Daddy, what was it? And he's like, it's okay. And he prayed over us, my sister and I. My sister woke up. And he's like, no worries, it's not going to come near you. It can't hurt you. I was okay. All right. And then I got into the trundle, into the day bed from the trundle with my sister because I was shaking. Because deep down I knew what it was. And all of a sudden, when Dad went back to bed, so pitch black, so dark, I heard this beep, beep, beep. And then it just something just like going off into the distance. It kept on. It was like Doppler radar, just beep, 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 and it's just gone. And then I told my sister the next morning. I said that was not normal. That was not something that we had a discussion about. Okay, we believe something was trying to get in the house, or was in the house and trying to get us. And that was luckily the final experience I had post-encounter. I've never been abducted. I'm not going to claim that I have been. I believe it's come close, but I believe it's a test of faith, and it was a building experience in my life. I'm thankful that God has got me safe through it all. Now that I actually understand what it is, back then it scared the living daylights out of me. It still does, but I mean, it scared me more because I didn't understand. How could these beings be there that could do so much harm? How could God create these things? But now that I understand, it makes more sense that they are fallen angels and not some creation gone wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Those ones that got into your house, did you see them, or did somebody see them to see what they looked like?
My dad said they were. He said he looked at them, and they were taller. They looked kind of black, like maybe a dark gray, maybe a black. And he said they just looked. There were 2 in the study by the window, and. So we went in the next day. We saw footprints. We saw the grass and the dirt on the floor. And my books. I was homeschooled at the time, so my books were thrown all over the place. There was we kept a pretty clean house. My mom's kind of a neat freak, so everything was clean all the time. Books were all over the floor, bags, clothes, blankets, everything. There's a entrance to the attic from the study closet where they were. The attic door was kind of moved over. So and when I heard them, they were tripping over rattlers. It sounded like they were getting caught in the walls. They were scratching at things. But yeah, my dad said that they looked to be maybe 6 foot, and they were dark gray black color. He had the almond eyes, and that's when he said, "Mm-hmm." That's all he had to say about it. I laugh about it now, but it was a scary time. Very scary time. I'm thankful that nothing happened.
Yeah, me too. You said they left a footprint behind?
Yeah, there were footprints in the room.
Well, what they look like?
It had 3 toes. It was like you take your fist, but much bigger, and then 3 dots.
Wow. Wow, it's horrifying, but it's fascinating at the same time. Yeah, I know from just knowing you for so long and being married to you that there are a lot of stories you have like that we could easily get into, but that would probably take longer than what we have for for the show. I will say for those interested, Christina and I are planning on putting at some point in the future, putting together a mini study book, and it might possibly be an unreleased thing to be included in an anthology, but we're going to be putting Christina's personal accounts and encounters in there, including further description, things like that. We're going to get it all. We're going to put that in a mini study book along with a study on what these things actually are and stuff like that. So be looking forward to that. But for those who may have had these type of experiences or might have questions, is there a way that they could get a hold of you? Maybe an email address or on Facebook or something like that?
Absolutely. Facebook is just my name, Christina Peck, and I have an email that you can contact me. Is first and last name, Christina Peck, number 86 at Gmail. So that's Christina Peck 86 at gmail.com, and you can find me on Facebook. Not a problem.
All right.
I'm not talking about it.
Good deal. Well, thank you so much, and I'll include those links in the show notes as well. Well, unfortunately, I do think that we are all just about all out of time. So as I said before, that was Christina Peck, my lovely, beautiful wife, who I don't know what she's doing with me, but maybe you weren't completely healed from that closed head injury after all.
Thanks, babe. I love you too.
I kid, of course. I'm an extremely lucky and blessed man to be married to you, and I thank you so much for being on the show. I'm glad that we were, of course we live together and everything, but our schedules don't always work out. So I'm glad we were able to figure this out and be able to do this. It's been fun, and I'm sure that we'll do future shows together.
Lovely. It's been a pleasure, and yes, I've had a lot of fun.
Awesome. Good deal. I thank you so much for being on. And again, for those of you who would like to contact Christina or get a hold of her, it's ChristinaPeck86 at gmail.com. You can also find her on Facebook. As I said before, she's really the other half of Mini Study Ministry as well, which is the ministry that we use to put out all my books and materials for people out there. So it's just ministudyministry.com. Simple and easy enough to remember. And for those of you who feel led to, and I say it that way because there is no obligation, but for those of you who feel God leading them to want to contribute financially, you can go to ministudyministry.com and there's a donate link. I did say last week that we don't have any kind of automatic or scheduled payments. Like there's no way to set up like a once a month or once a week kind of thing. Through Mini Study Ministry, we didn't set anything like that up because I didn't want there to be any unnecessary obligation. But we do go through PayPal, and when you click on the donate thing, there is a way that you can set that up if you want to. So we're not at all against that. You know, there are people who have done that. So if you would like to set up a scheduled automatic, you know, payment for every week, month, year, you know, whatever the case may be, you can do that through PayPal. But there's no obligation. Just do as God leads. We could even always use more prayer. That's been such a huge help to us because we have a lot of people out there praying for us in the ministry, and it's brought us to where we are today. So we're just thrilled about that. So all that being said, we are all out of time. I want to thank you so much for listening or for watching, depending how you're getting this broadcast. That again was Christina Peck, my lovely and beautiful wife. So I want to thank you all again, and as always, take care. God bless.